Keith Van Horn was an interesting player from the late 1990s and early 2000s who never quite reached the superstar status some expected, but still had a solid NBA career. Van Horn burst onto the scene as a college star at Utah, where he was absolutely dominant. He was such a standout that he was selected second overall in the 1997 NBA draft by the Philadelphia 76ers, though he was immediately traded to the New Jersey Nets. What made Van Horn intriguing was his unique skill set. Here was a 6'10" forward who could shoot from outside and handle the ball pretty well, which was pretty unusual for someone his size back then. Think of him as an early prototype for a modern stretch four. His rookie season with the Nets was really promising. He averaged about 19 points and 6.6 rebounds, making the all-rookie first team. There was a lot of buzz about him, with some even comparing him to Larry Bird, though that was probably setting expectations a bit too high. Van Horn spent 5 seasons with the Nets, consistently putting up good numbers, usually around 17 to 19 points per game. But here's the thing where things got interesting. Despite his solid stats, he never quite made the leap to superstardom that many expected. Van Horn arrived at Utah in 1993 and quickly became one of the most dominant players in Western Athletic Conference history. Get this, he was WAC Player of the Year not just once but 4 times. Absolutely wild when you think about it. He was pretty much unstoppable at the college level from his freshman year onward. During his time with the Utes, he played under Rich Majerus, who really helped develop his unique skill set. Van Horn wasn't your typical big man. He could shoot from outside, handle the ball, and run the floor despite being 6'10". The Utes ran a lot of their offense through him, and he made the most of it. His senior year was particularly spectacular. He averaged 22 points and 9.5 rebounds per game, leading Utah to a 29-4 record and a spot in the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. The Utes were actually ranked as high as number 2 in the country that year, which was huge for a non-power conference team. By the time he finished college career, Van Horn had racked up 2,542 points and 1,074 rebounds. He was named a first-team All-American in 1997, and his jersey number 44 was retired by Utah. What's really interesting is how he helped put Utah basketball on the map. Before Van Horn, Utah was a solid program, but he helped elevate them to a national prominence. The year after he left, the Utes actually made it to the national championship game, though they lost to Kentucky. His game in college was really ahead of its time. He was essentially playing the modern stretch 4 before it was really a thing. He could shoot his threes, post up, or take defenders off the dribble. In the mid-90s college game, that was very rare. What's also cool is that he stayed all 4 years at Utah, which gave him time to really develop his game and leave a lasting legacy. He's still considered one of the greatest players in Utah history. The funny thing is, his success at Utah was so overwhelming that it actually created some pretty massive expectations for his NBA career. When you dominate college ball like he did for 4 straight years, people start throwing around comparisons to legends like Larry Bird, which is quite a burden for any young player to carry into the pros. Van Horn was drafted second overall in the 1997 NBA draft, but here's a twist. He was actually drafted by the 76ers and immediately traded to the New Jersey Nets. Talk about a welcome to the NBA. The Nets saw something special in him and were excited to build around his unique skill set. His rookie season was impressive right out of the gate. Van Horn averaged 19 points and 6.6 rebounds per game, which earned him a spot on the all-rookie first team. He was part of a young, emerging Nets team that was starting to build something interesting. The early years of the Nets' career were marked by consistent scoring. He was typically putting up around 17 to 19 points per game, showing he could be a reliable offensive threat. What made Van Horn unique was his ability to shoot from outside, something pretty rare for a power forward in the late 1990s. By the early 2000s, the Nets were really coming into their own, with Jason Kidd arriving in 2001. The team's dynamics changed dramatically. Van Horn wasn't the primary star anymore, but he became an important complementary piece. His ability to spread the floor, hit outside shots, made him the perfect fit alongside Kidd's playmaking. The 2001-2002 season was probably the highlight of his Nets tenure. The team made a remarkable run to the NBA Finals, facing the dominant Los Angeles Lakers. While they didn't win the championship, it was a breakthrough moment for the franchise. Van Horn was a key contributor during the playoff run, averaging around 14 points per game. Interestingly, Van Horn's time with the Nets started to wind down after the finals appearance. He was traded to the 76ers in 2002, which was somewhat ironic given he originally drafted by them. During his Nets years, Van Horn established himself as a solid NBA player. He was not a superstar, but he was a consistently productive and helped transform the Nets from a struggling franchise to a legitimate playoff contender. His legacy with the Nets is that of a skilled, versatile forward who could score from anywhere and help bridge the team's transition from a struggling organization to an Eastern Conference powerhouse. Pretty solid 5-year run, if you ask me. In the 2002-2003 season, Van Horn came back to Philadelphia after being traded from the New Jersey Nets. This was during the Allen Iverson era, and the 76ers were still a competitive team in the Eastern Conference. Van Horn was brought in as a complementary player to Iverson, offering outside shooting and versatility. During the season, Van Horn averaged around 14.5 points and 6.8 rebounds per game. His role was more reduced compared to earlier years with the Nets, but he was still a solid contributor. He provided spacing on offense and could play both power forward and small forward. The 76ers finished the year with a 43-39 record and made the playoffs, though they were eliminated in the first round by the New Orleans Hornets. Van Horn played a supporting role during this playoff run. Interestingly, this would be Van Horn's last full season as a significant NBA rotation player. After the season, he was traded to the New York Knicks, marking the beginning of the final phase of his NBA career. While not the most memorable period of his career, Van Horn's time with the 76ers represented a homecoming of sorts and a transitional moment in his professional basketball journey. Keith Van Horn's time with the New York Knicks was brief and somewhat unremarkable. Traded to the Knicks in 2003, he was part of a team in transition, struggling to find its identity in the post-Patrick Ewing era. During the 2003-2004 season, Van Horn's role was limited. He averaged around 12 points and 6 rebounds per game, significantly reduced from his peak years with the New Jersey Nets. The Knicks were going through a challenging period, dealing with the roster changes and underperformance. His playing time became increasingly sporadic as the season progressed. The Knicks were experimenting with younger players, and Van Horn found himself more of a veteran presence than a key rotation player. While not a memorable chapter in his NBA career, Van Horn's time with the Knicks represented the gradual wind down of a solid NBA career that had shown so much promise in its early years. After being traded from the New York Knicks, he joined the Milwaukee Bucks team looking to compete in the Eastern Conference. During the 2003-2004 season, Van Horn averaged around 13 points and 6 rebounds per game. His role was reduced compared to his peak years, but he still provided valuable veteran leadership and versatility off the bench. The Bucks were a competitive team during this period, led by players like Michael Redd and Joe Smith. In the 2004-2005 season, his playing time continued to decrease. Van Horn was increasingly becoming a situational player used sparingly in rotation. This period marked the gradual decline of an NBA career, as younger players began to take more of a prominent role. His next move would be a trade to the Dallas Mavericks. Keith Van Horn's time with the Dallas Mavericks from 2004 to 2006 was his final chapter in the NBA. After being traded from the Milwaukee Bucks, he joined the Mavericks team led by Dirk Nowitzki and featuring rising stars like Jason Terry. During the 2004-2005 season, Van Horn's role was minimal. He averaged around 8 to 9 points per game, primarily coming off the bench. His veteran presence and ability to stretch the floor made him a situational player for the Mavericks. In the 2005-2006 season, Van Horn's playing time decreased even further. He appeared in only 25 games, signaling the end of his active NBA career. While not a major contributor, he provided depth and experience to a Mavericks team that would eventually reach the NBA Finals that year. The Dallas years were a quiet conclusion to a career that had shown such promise in its early stages with the New Jersey Nets, marking the gradual transition of a once promising young star to a veteran role player. Van Horn retired relatively early, calling it quits in 2006 at age 30 after a 9-year NBA career. While he might not have lived up to the massive hype of being the number 2 pick, he still had a respectable career averaging 16 points and 7 rebounds per game. Not too shabby at all. Looking back, Van Horn was kind of ahead of his time. His playing style would probably be even more valued in today's NBA, where big men who can shoot are highly prized. He might not have been a superstar, but he was definitely a solid pro who could light it up on any given night. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and stay safe.